Okay, on this program yesterday, we opened with a short review of the Trump press conference. It turned out to be very adversarial, Trump and the media. And apparently, folks, I'm telling you, I didn't watch any cable news yesterday or last night when I got home. Not 1 second. I watched the latest episode of Person of Interest, one of my favorite shows that's been canceled. It was at 10 o'clock last night. I flicked around and finished a couple things that I've been looking at on Netflix, but I did not have cable news on once. I paid no attention to cable news this morning when I got here. So I got the audio soundbite roster, and I find out I'm half of it. And it's because I apparently am the only person in major media who had the take on the Trump press conference that I had. Apparently, virtually everybody in the cable news universe that cable news networks go to for analysts and analysis and so forth thought that Trump stepped in it big time yesterday. Made one of the biggest unforced errors of the campaign to treat the press that way, to deal with them that way, to have this adversarial relationship with them. And so because apparently I am the only one who had the take that I had, my take became fodder for reaction all over. And I didn't know any of this until 5 minutes before the program began. I know what many of you think. Rush, are you really telling us that you don't know what the audio sound bites are going to be until 5 minutes before? Yes, folks, I'm telling you that. We have a smooth-oiled machine, and after 27 years, same people that were here on day one, and they know exactly what I want and don't want. I don't have to tell them, which is the way it should be. I don't have a producer because I don't want the distraction of having to talk to one or deal with one. I don't have a producer because I don't want anybody questioning are you sure you want to do that? I just, Coco up at the website. I don't have to tell them what I want there every day. They know. They've been doing this long enough. They know what I like, don't like. They know what I say I want up there, things I don't. So I take what Cookie gives me. Sometimes if I see something on TV at night, Cookie, I just saw something X time frame. Here it is. Make sure I have that tomorrow. But it happens so rarely because she's going to find it anyway. I mean, the number of days that I get the audio soundbite roster and what I'm looking for isn't there. I count on one hand. So, yeah, I found out 5 minutes before the program about all this. So let me take a break. We'll come back and get started because the reaction to it is what's interesting, not what you already know what I said. The fact that I'm the only one who said it, interesting in its own way on many. Okay, let's start with Fox News this morning on the program they call America's Newsroom. Martha McCallum was speaking with Karl Rove. Now, keep in mind that Rove and the Bush White House never responded to the Democrats when political allegations or slime or defamation occurred, and it was constant. The Democrats, amplified by the media, destroyed the George W. Bush second term. People were frustrated throughout that the Bush administration, never responded. I asked the president about it numerous times. He said, I'm not going to sully this office. I'm not going to take this office down to the gutter where those people are. I have too much respect for it, too much reverence for it. So when they go all political on me, I'm not responding to it. I'm not going to get down in the gutter. And that's why he didn't do it. Karl Rove later admitted that might have been a mistake to have this blanket no response policy. But that just is a setup because Rove is asked to respond to this as one of many who did. So it begins this way.
It's hammering the press, and it's something that may work well for Donald Trump. We've seen this happen time and time again. Let's listen to this soundbite from Rush Limbaugh.
How many years have people been begging for a Republican to just once take on the media the way Trump did, all the way from the premise to the details, to the motivation? Near the end of it, a frustrated journalist, Mr. Trump, is it going to be this way? Is it going to be this way? Are you going to be attacking us after you become president? People at home watching this. Because, folks, in the age of internet trolling, manners are out the window. It's a waste of time asking for manners. It's a waste of time asking for propriety and so forth. Internet trolling defines how people interact with each other. And, of course, Mr. Trump, is it going to be this way in Trump? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You're the most dishonest people I've ever dealt with. So then Martha asked Karl Rove to react to it, and that's what he said.
I think Rush is right that it helps him, but who does it help him with? It helps him with the 10 million people who voted for him in the Republican primaries. In the general election, there'll be 135 million people turn out to vote. I'm not certain it helps him with the people who are swing voters up for grabs, and it certainly is very unpresidential. It would not be a good spectacle for our country to have a President Trump acting like candidate Trump acted yesterday afternoon. You can have your disagreements with the press, and you can make pointed arguments, but the bullying and the threats and the mean tone and the angry comments, they don't serve him well over the long haul and wouldn't serve our country well either.
What do you think about that? If this were and don't misunderstand, I'm not being Pollyanna here. If this were a level playing field, the press treated everybody the same, and they may have a point here. But, of course, that has never existed and won't exist. The Democrats have no reason to bully the press. Obama, by the way, if you listen to certain media people, is more disrespectful of the press than they say any other president in their memory. But they don't talk about it much, and they don't call him on it because, of course, they want him to succeed. They're pushing. I mean, they're Democrats. Journalism is their cover, if you will. I mean, they're agents for the Democrat National Committee, Democrat Party, and so forth. It's not a level playing field. And something has to be done here in order to keep your supporters revved up, for one thing. Anyway, we'll continue this in just a sec. So during the break, Snerdley's saying, what do you mean? You don't think a producer could be helpful? There's no way a producer. What, do you want the job? Let me tell you, I don't want a producer here because a producer is going to have his job validated. A producer is going to be the guy that wants to take credit for what happens on the program. I've been there, done that, and I don't want any part of that. The main reason, though, is a producer is going to want to have everything slated out, planned out, this time, this and that, and I don't know when I'm going to do what. This whole thing every day is improv, and I have never, ever in 27 years, other than the broadcast engineer tell him what sound bites I think are coming up. And oftentimes I change on the fly. What I've told him doesn't happen anyway. But that's it. No producer, because I don't want to have to tell anybody what's coming, because I don't know what's coming. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Like, I didn't know I was going to be saying this. Until, you mean you're really that strongly against a producer? Yes. Yes, if I wanted a producer, I would have one. There's no need. I often thought why would a show like this need a producer? Why does any radio talk show need a producer? Why does any radio talk show need a consultant? You can either do it or you can't do it. Well, okay, if you're defining producer as somebody who lines up the guests, then fine. I can see that. But since we don't do that here, why do you need a producer? No, I'm not insulting anybody. Why do you think I'm insulting anybody? I'm not insulting a soul here. I'm just answering your question about why there's not a producer here. There never has been. Oh, you mean I don't get it? What do you mean I don't get it? Oh, well, I can't say that. I can't. Snerdley's talking inside baseball stuff. I can't say that. Yeah, if I were in the sewer looking up at everybody, I could say that. But from top down, you can't say stuff like that. That would be poor manners. Talk about manners. Okay, back to this. Apparently, me having the only take on the Trump presser that I had. I am a little surprised. I'm the only prominent national voice that had the take, and that's why this soundbite's all over the place. It was on MSNBC too, but we've got a ban there, so we're not going to have any soundbites from there. But up next, now Greta Van Susteren, she's sharp, and she comes close to getting it here. This is her show last night, and she's talking about all of this. And she, again, starts her segment by playing my audio clip.
Conservative radio host and the king of radio, Rush Limbaugh, even saying this was the news conference Republicans have been waiting for decades.
How many years have people been begging for a Republican to just once take on the media the way Trump did? All the way from the premise to the details, to the motivation. Near the end of it, a frustrated journalist, Mr. Trump, is it going to be this way? Is it going to be this way? Are you going to be attacking us after you become president? Because, folks, in the age of internet trolling, manners are out the window. It's a waste of time asking for manners here. One of Greta's guests was Nina Easton, former bureau chief of the Boston Globe, and now she's a Fox News contributor. She writes for Fortune. And Greta said if he gave one of the wrong veterans group, we'd be all over him. I assume that they were investigating these groups. She said the media and the way they were harassing Trump or investigating Trump or scrutinizing Trump or whatever they do. And here's what Nina Easton said in reaction.
I thought it was a very interesting moment today because you saw this, what you thought would have been a general election candidate, right? More presidential, giving to veterans groups, doing great work there. Instead, it turned into the primary candidate of attacking, name-calling. And look, everybody hates the news media. Get it, got it, good. This follows attacks on his fellow candidates. It follows recent attacks on fellow Republicans. And it also goes to this question, while people don't like the media, people in a general election in particular, I think, want candidates to undergo scrutiny.
In the first place, this business about being presidential, George W. Bush was the epitome of acting presidential. There's nobody other than he, his father, and Ronaldus Magnus who held the office of the presidency in such reverence, such high regard, and went to great lengths to never sully it. George W. Bush was the epitome of what these people are all talking about. They think Trump should now assume this posture of general election candidate and should become more presidential and more accommodating of the media and more understanding and less critical of people and less bully-like. Well, George Bush did all of that, and where did it get him? He may be one of the most currently reviled ex-presidents we've got. And it's such a shame, so unnecessary. Bush was a good president. He's a great guy. He was somebody that fits every characteristic and quality people say they want in a president in terms of deportment, comportment, behavior, manners, reverence for the office, and all this. Where did it get him? Now, don't misunderstand. I'm merely trying to counter these people who are saying that Trump needs to become more like that because that's what's expected. Okay, if you define being presidential as what George W. Bush did, it didn't help him. The image of being presidential, refusing to get down in the gutter, not answering any of the critics, letting himself be lied about, letting his policies be lied about, letting the war in Iraq be lied about, let it be summarily destroyed in the media with all these books about how to assassinate him, and none of this reacted to. Tell me how it helped him. It just didn't. Plus, we're living in a different age. I think people are going to have to realize here it's a different age, and people are continuing to try. If you don't evolve, particularly as you get older, and it's such a trap. It is such a trap. There are certain things that are universally true, and that is as people grow older, if they're not careful, they become completely dismissive of what younger generations think, do, and how younger generations behave. They end up thinking all hell is breaking loose, and we're all going to hell in a handbasket, except there's a shortage of handbaskets. And they long for the old days, and they rely on and live in nostalgia instead of recognizing that things are in constant flux, constant change. And this is a world that is made for the young. It just is. It always has been. It always will be. And it's, by young, I'm talking about 40s, 45. I'm not talking about 18 to 25 and so forth. That's important. But the point is, you can get stuck and not realize how society and culture is evolving. And if the objective is to win an election and to get more votes than anybody else, you have to know the electorate. And I'm thinking that a lot of people are still looking at a presidential electorate the way they looked at one 20 years ago, 25 years ago, trying to imagine the population of the country's expectations of what a president should be 20, 25 years. If that were the case, we wouldn't have Obama. Obama would not have been elected a second time if people had the same standards and desires in a president. But let's face it, we've shifted. This country wants a president that's even more powerful than the Constitution permits. The people of this country are totally fine. Look at the college students signing on to socialism. Doesn't matter. They don't know what they're doing. You try to educate them into how they're wrong and hope that they grow and mature and discover it on their own. But the fact remains that it is what it is. People are how they are. You can't take this social media stuff out of the equation. You know, this social media stuff is such a pitfall for people. I have been trying to warn people for over 10 years about this. But such is the desire for fame among average, ordinary people. They watch and pay attention to certain areas and elements of media, and they easily can end up concluding that life is nothing but the red carpet, the celebrity opening, and the after party, and having all kinds of paparazzi follow you around, and everybody wanting to know what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're dressed, what you're thinking. And so all of this stuff, they are vomiting all over social media. They are casting every bit of privacy aside. In fact, do you know that there was a ruling that came down yesterday, was, forget which circuit, it might have been the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, basically said that law enforcement can go to any cell carrier and get any customer's location data without a warrant, that does not qualify as a violation of the Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. And you know why? Precisely because, and it's not just this court, a bunch of lower courts have found all the way back to the 80s that if people are willingly giving up broadcasting, sharing with anybody and everybody details of their privacy, then we cannot hold a cellular company responsible for violating it when their customers are beating them to the punch, giving away elements of their privacy and their identity multiple times a day. Well, I'll tell you how this is going to manifest itself. Every time you tweet, every time you retweet, every time you do anything, somebody's got a record of it. Once you send it out, it's no longer yours, and anybody can take it and do with whatever they want. And a lot of people are doing this because they're seeking fame, they're seeking notice, they want to matter, they want everybody to know about them and learn about them. They want to have their followers, they want to have their likes, and they learn what it takes to get all of that. And who happens to be the champion of it right now? Donald J. Trump happens to be the champion of how you do all that. And once, the behavior patterns on social media are, as we all know, and very few of us actually approve of, the behavior on many of these social media sites are reprehensible in terms of what everybody's standards of good manners and politeness and respect, all that's out the window. Internet trolling has become its own behavioral mode. Now, you can say, oh, that's horrible. It is, but it still is happening, and it is what it is. And those people have a whole different definition of what's presidential than people 20, 25 years ago did. Now, I don't want to be misunderstood here. I am not abandoning my standards or anything else. But the point of this is, I think there are still lots of people that are probably of a certain age and might have very high inflated opinion of themselves who haven't the slightest idea yet why Donald Trump is so popular. And they keep trying to say, well, if he's going to hold, he better turn presidential. What did I talk to 2 weeks ago? I said there are going to be efforts to change the guy, and he'd better resist them. You know, the old saw, you dance with the one that brung you. You are who you are, and if that attracts a crowd, remain who you are. But don't let somebody come in or a series of consultants and tell you that you have to stop being who you are because now it's time to switch gears. You've got to follow your gut. You've got to follow your instincts. At the end of the day, you rise or fall based on who you are. The more you're phoning it up, the more it's going to crash and burn on you at some point anyway. And so all of these people saying Trump needs to change, he's presidential, that doesn't apply to him. But Rush, what about what Rove said? Yeah, it's 10 million people that vote for him. Yeah, they love it. But what about the independents and the undecideds and all that? Well, we'll see. They got more votes in a Republican primary than anybody ever has. If you look at the polling data out there, he's ahead of or even within the margin of error for Hillary, and every expert said he's going to be a landslide loser when this all began. I got to take a break. I'm way long. I'm sorry to interrupt myself, but I have to. I have no choice. Okay, I'll have more on that monologue. So I don't even think, you know, I don't think Trump was even avoiding scrutiny yesterday. That's not what was going on. This whole thing's being misrepresented. People are not seeing it because they're plugged into templates. They're plugged into narratives that are generations old or years old. They're missing everything that's happening right in front of them. But I'll explain more on that. I got two more bites I want to squeeze in here. First, CNN's newsroom, Aisha Sisay is her name. Aisha Sisay, talking with Ron Brownstein of The Atlantic. Question, how much of this media scolding that Trump did was strategery, and how much of it was him just trying to dominate the news cycle, Mr. Brownstein?
I had a interesting conversation during the primaries with Alex Castellanos, who's a longtime Republican consultant, and he was puzzling himself over why Donald Trump was able to hold so much support among conservatives despite all his deviations from conservative orthodoxy. And he said, what he finally concluded was that Trump was so popular because he went after our enemies, hammer and tongue. Rush Limbaugh, described this as the press conference Republican voters have been waiting for forever.
So here's Brownstein admitting it took a Republican consultant to tell him why Trump was popular. Couldn't figure it out. And what they concluded, Trump's popular because he goes after enemies. He's a fighter. That's part of it. There's no question it's part of it. There are many, many, many other reasons. But that is clearly part. And, of course, it was I, your host, El Rushbo, who provided the exclamation point to the claim. And one more, last night, Fox Business Network, Risk and Reward with Deirdre Bolton. And she spoke with the Trump campaign spokesperson, Katrina Pearson, about me and the comments you're not familiar with. And here's that exchange.
Rush Limbaugh started his radio show this morning with this.
People been begging for a Republican to just once take on the media the way Trump did.
So, Katrina, how much feedback on that 40-minute press conference are you getting?
My inbox is so full right now from so many people across the country saying, finally, people are so fed up and frustrated with the hypocrisy on the way Republicans are covered versus the way Democrats are covered or lack thereof.
And that's what Trump was. Trump was not bullying these people because they demanded answers on his vet donations. What Trump was, he was not avoiding scrutiny. He answered their questions. He's got these 27-year-old young journalists out there, and all he was pointing out is that where is the scrutiny of Mrs. Clinton? Where is the same scrutiny of Democrat candidates? It's one of the many things that I heard in that press conference yesterday, much more. Yeah, of course I want to hear what you have to say about all this. We'll weigh in with phone calls as the next hour gets underway. Remember, Obama said if Republicans really care about pregnant women and their babies, they will okay Zika virus funding. They really care about pregnant women and their babies. Right? Back in a sec, folks.